have you had a chance to see the Silent Hill movie, Dina's favorite movie?
Sure.
The first one?
Yeah.
Wasn't it R-rated?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
No, I wouldn't watch an R-rated movie.
Oh, okay.
What, you believe me? You guys are so easy.
Well, I remember you saying you wanted to see Jacob's Ladder, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's rated R.
You guys.
I was like,
no, I haven't seen it. Should I see it? Is it good?
Well,
I want to tell you to see it just because I'd be curious what your opinion on it would be, but
yeah.
I don't personally recommend it.
It wasn't very highly regarded.
Yeah, fans are very, very split on it. Some of them love it because it duplicates the look of the games really well. But in my opinion, the story feels really dumbed down.
And Pyramid Head is literally in there strictly for fan service.
I have seen clips of a Silent Hill movie, but I'm not sure if they're advanced clips of this new one. But there's this movie where there's like a big church building, and the humans are retreating into that building, and Pyramid Head is just ripping the skin off people.
That is the first one. Yep.
That's the first one?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that movie's...
He's like, I've seen enough already.
Yeah.
It's just like...
He's flailing people, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They made a bloody horror movie, and they borrowed that really powerful flailing of a body from Predator. And the first time we saw that in modern times was Predator, where the Predator was stripping the skin off bodies and collecting their, trinkets.
Yeah.
And so that is a really scary notion. For example, there are certain words in the English language that you only need to hear the meaning of it once, and you never forget it, because they touch you so deeply in this place in your psyche. And that image is something you don't forget. It's really visceral. And I thought, that's really not the Silent Hill experience that I recall. I remember it as being a more psychological, plucking psychological strings. I think it's really, for lack of a better word, I'll use Freudian. There are a lot of things that happen in there between James and Mary, and then Mary having an alter ego as Maria, and that being a projection of his fantasy, perhaps, of what Mary might have had in her character, if only. I've been trying to figure this out. There's some real people in the game, and there are projections from James' mind. Pyramid Head I thought, was a projection of James' psyche. I mean, his tormentor manifests as Pyramid Head.
Yeah.
I thought Maria was a projection of James's mind, because she sees the monsters. And Laura doesn't see any monsters. She's a real person. And I could never figure out how she got to the town. That was totally unreal for me. So I assumed she was not real as well. But apparently somebody gave her a ride.
Yeah, she got a ride. They sort of imply in the opening that she got a ride from Eddie.
Yeah, which is weird. So and then there's Eddie there. Is he a real person? I guess the consensus is that he is a real person.
Yeah, I believe so.
So and then Angela, is she a real person?
Am I real?
So you're real because we're talking. Right?
Is this conversation real?
So Angela's real, but Pyramid Head and Maria are not. They're like projections. They don't have autonomous existences. When James isn't there, they don't continue.
Okay, since you've been keeping in touch with fans a lot over this last year or so, do you ever get tired of hearing about James or Silent Hill 2?
No, I don't get tired of hearing about James or Silent Hill 2. It's because people are always saying nice things about it, so I like that.
True.
But what I won't say I'm getting tired, but I'm getting it's just getting
Getting a little burned out.
It's just part. No, it's just part of the business. Or people ask the same questions over and over again, and so you just like performing a role. If you're on a stage, you've got to bring fresh life to the answer each time, because the person, you answered it before, but maybe they don't. So it's not right to assume, hey, well, didn't you read any of the stuff I've already listened to the other podcasts I've done? If you were, so you've got to give it, right back in there. And it was just a twist of fate and then you think, well, I can't keep using the same phrases because somebody's going to say, this is hackneyed every time. So I'm moving to try and keep my responses fresh. That's the only challenge now, is that people ask the same questions and I want to give them a fresh response. I think this podcast has really been the deepest exploration of my thoughts and experiences, because we've had a dialogue back and forth, as opposed to written questions. This is the first time I've talked in an interview about it. So maybe there won't be anything left to say after this one.
This is it.
We'll have to direct everyone to this podcast, right?
Works for me.
You heard it from Guy himself. We are the definitive podcast. It gets no better after this.
You're the Silent Hill 2 of the franchise, right?
Okay.
After this, I'm going to start polishing it up. You got it all raw.
Okay. All right. So what do you think of all of the James fan art you've seen, and have you read any Silent Hill 2 fan fiction?
The fan art is impressive. I started out as an artist and designer, so I know how much time goes into creating that work and what a labor of love it is. And I'm very pleased to be able to post it on the album so that other fans can share it. I think my Facebook page, as you know, has become a kind of gathering place for things that are related to James in particular. And I'm happy with that. Sometimes people use comments and posts as a way of discussing issues or their own opinions on the games, and I don't know how I feel about that. I've only had to delete a couple of items that I thought were off track. As I say, most of the fans are respectful of it, and it seems to be self-policing. If comments come up, other people would say, hey, that's not appropriate for Guy's page, that should be, let's take this to a forum. And I always appreciate that. So big shout out to all the fans who do that for me. It saves me from being a hard ass. So I really appreciate that. I don't want to tweak anybody or make them feel that I don't appreciate their interest, because I do. The art, I love it all, and I wish it would keep coming, and I'll keep adding more to the album there.
Excellent.
So I enjoy that very much. There was a second part to that question in addition to the artwork. What was it?
Have you read any Silent Hill
fan fiction?
Fan fiction, yeah.
Well, I read a little bit of the material Dana passed my way when she asked me to record those lines for her video, and I thought that was fun. No, other than that, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't seen any.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because that leads into the next question. How's that for a segue?
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 years ago, I had you do this little reading of a piece of Silent Hill 2 fan fiction for my Game Den episode where I covered Silent Hill 2. Everyone loved it. It kind of got out of my control, and it's all over the internet now, but a lot of people found it surprising that you agreed to do it, because you weren't actively communicating with fans like you are now. And I guess to them, you just kind of came out of nowhere with this. And I've had a lot of people ask, how did you get him to do it? Which I would answer, I asked him. But then they would always ask, okay, why did he agree to do it? So now I'm directing that question to you, because they've actually gotten me kind of curious.
My ego.
I like that answer.
It's honest.
That's the truth. You asked me, and I thought, well, a lot of people are going to see this, so, well, that'll be cool. so, so I did it, and I had been recording again. I had been doing a lot of recording work just prior to you asking me. So I had the studio set up. I've got an M-Box here, and I had been recording, and I'll be doing more recording again soon.
Excellent.
So I thought it would be easy to do a good job. I wouldn't do. I'm a little bit hesitant about this podcast, but after listening to Monica's, I thought, oh, okay, it's not James, and we're not doing a performance. We're people. We're talking,
Right.
and I can deal with that. So that's what we're doing. But the sound quality, because we're on Skype and we're using cheap mics, is going to be less than optimal. So I like to do good work, and I knew that I could control the performance when you asked me to read those lines. And as you know, I rewrote it. I edited it pretty heavily because I wanted it to be the way I wanted to do it. And I figured, Sato's not around to deny me my choices. I could do what I want now. So I got into it. Now, let's go roll back a little on this. Why did I do it again, besides my ego? You were the first to recognize me, I would say. People think that I just appeared out of nowhere and I didn't really care about the fans prior to that, or I didn't pay attention to the franchise, blah, blah, blah. I had no idea that it existed. I had no idea there were fans. How many games were released in 2000 that nobody plays anymore, that nobody cares about? How about most of them? So here's one, and I'm not in the active in the industry, and it's gone on and become this phenomenon, and I didn't know. So that's all. I just didn't know. How about Heather? Right? Where's Heather? How come Heather doesn't interact? Heather Morris. How come she doesn't interact? She doesn't know. It's as simple as that. She just doesn't know. Her life's gone in a different direction, so she doesn't know. If she knew, I swear she would sign the release. I know she would have. It's just they couldn't find her. They made an effort. She doesn't know. So I didn't know. And when you contacted me, I kind of got an idea there might be something there, and it stroked my ego, and I had the recording gear. It's a case of the stars aligning. And I did it, and the kids were listening, and the kids were scared, and it was fun. So now, since that time, you've kind of, pulled I don't know, it's like a finger's been pulled out of a dike. There's been people that have been kind of like trickling in, asking for favors. And it's going to be impossible for me to do it. I just do not have the time to do that. So you were lucky.
Indeed.
You were lucky, and I don't think I'm going to have much time for this. The Let's Play, I think, will be my final installment, and I'll let it stand there. And so some of these issues that we've discussed today are a preview for the depth of insight I hope to bring through the Let's Play. I'm not going to be jumping around talking about how scared I am or this little monster here. I'm going to talk about what's going on in James's head, and I don't think anybody else can do that. So I'll leave it there. And then after that, gosh, I'm not really sure there's anything more that needs doing.
If given the option, would you be willing to play James in a movie or a game sequel if the character showed up again as a main character?
Yeah, if they pay me.
There you go.
True. I'll do it if they pay me. Of course. Why not? Konami, are you listening? Or actually Sony. Sony bought the rights for the movie, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's got to be Sony. Now, I did, not Shane, maybe CJ Melendez suggested to the director of the current movie, which I believe is called Silent Hill 2, the one they're working on.
It's Silent Hill Revelations, I think.
Yeah.
They never number sequels anymore.
Revelations, okay.
Yeah.
He suggested that it would be cool if I appeared in it in a cameo.
Yes.
And I said, sure, why not? So I thought he had laid a little groundwork with the director, and then he gave me his contact information. I wrote to him and offered to fly myself to Toronto, where they're filming, and appear without cost, as for fun, again,
Yeah.
for me and for fans as well. And he responded, and this was before things had gotten messy with Konami regarding the HD release, but it was clear they had a movie coming out, they got their HD collection coming out, they've got a new game coming out. They wanted to have all of these things happening at about the same time to generate the maximum publicity and impact. And I thought it made sense, but the director refused. He made some comment about union regulations or whatever, and it would be too difficult, so thanks but no thanks.
Wow.
So that was that.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Well, it's kind of like that whole, I mean, the Konami views it very differently than fans do. Fans see the franchise, and there are some businesses that get it. I'm trying to think of one. They get it. They get it that the product is not theirs. They think it's theirs, and they're letting you use it. But in the internet age, the products become the property of the users, and you really run a huge risk if you try to change something against their wish, because you don't own it when it's out on the internet. They own it. The users own it.
Yeah.
You can modify and improve it, but you cannot change it. I think Facebook is there now. Facebook has gotten to the point where they're guiding it, but they no longer own it. It's actually owned by the users. I'm sure Tumblr is there as well. DeviantArt is there.
Mm.
They've become, and YouTube to a great extent, is now dominated by the content creators, not by the platform. The platform people are. So Konami, the game people, with a franchise like Silent Hill, I don't think they've gotten it yet, that they don't own Silent Hill. The fans do now. And so you could hear it in some of the comments they made about a new generation of fans. So we're going to make this appropriate for a new generation of fans. Introduce this classic to a new generation of fans, right? So they think they can turn their back on the old fans and move ahead with it.
Mm.
They learned that that's a mistake, especially with Silent Hill 2.
Exactly.
But they, to their credit, they did an about face once it didn't cost them anything. Yeah, they did an about face, and they put the original voices back in, and it wasn't easy. I mean, Tom and Devin had to do some work to do that, and I appreciate that they did that, and I think the fans should too. The code was cryptically written, and some of it was what do they call that? Compiled, so it couldn't really be opened. But they went in and did the best they could, and it was work, and they did it. So we should appreciate that.
Yeah, I've had some bad things to say about Konami in the past, but I really appreciated that they listened to the fans this time around. I honestly did not expect them to, but I was very glad that they did.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't. A lot of people lost hope, and then, I mean, the upside of that is you could have started buying up old original Silent Hill 2, PlayStation 2 games, because the value would go up on them as collectibles because they got the original voices. But small market, but still, it would have been interesting.
I'm glad I have a copy of Silent Hill 3.
Right. That game is off now, right? The old ones they're going to be valuable, but now the HD collection's coming out with the original voices. I'm curious. I guess we're all kind of curious to see what's the default. right? When you flip it
Oh
on.
yeah.
Do you get
Yeah.
new voices or the original voices? And I think
Hmm.
that'll be telling. If they put the original
Hmm.
voices up first, uh, they got it. And if they don't, then it's really just like, well, we wanted you off our backs, so here they are. Then we put them in there, and we can guess how much they got it by how difficult they make it to switch it over to the originals. Like if you set it to the originals, but then you play the game again and it defaults back to the new voices, we'll know that they
I'm just
really
thinking that you load up a saved game and it's got.
good. It defaults to the new voices, right? Yeah, I know, that'll be interesting. But
I'm thinking
anyway,
like, yeah, they're probably gonna make you work for it. It's like, oh, if you beat the game on the hardest difficulty in under 3 hours, then you do the Konami code, and then boom, the original voices.
Don't give them any ideas.
yeah.
Well, you already talked about keeping in touch with Dave and Monica during this whole Silent Hill 2 HD thing. Do you keep in touch with the other voice actors outside of Silent Hill 2?
Dave and I do. Dave, we're both fathers of teenage children. We both have Japanese wives. We live in Tokyo. We're both members of the Good Guy Club. We're good men. We care about our children and our wives and we work hard, and we don't run around and get fritter away our free time. We're pretty dedicated family men, so we have a lot in common. Dave will pop by for lunch when he's working a night shift from time to time, and I'm always happy to see him. We're interested in similar subjects, so we have a lot to talk about. That's when most of our relationship is not game related at all, or Silent Hill related. So Monica, she lives in L.A. She's nice, and she's a wonderful, interesting, complicated, intense, and beautiful person. But there's a great distance between us, and in order to build a stronger relationship, it would need contact hours of being together, and that's not going to happen. She's in LA, so. But this has been. It was really nice reunion to see her again and look at her and talk to her briefly as alone, and get to understand a little more about what makes her tick and why she was able to bring just the right performance to that character, to both characters, right? I mean, she's got that split personality thing going, and I was trying to figure out where that came from. I won't go into speculating with you what I learned about it. That you'll have to ask her about that, how she's able to do that. But I'm a detective for human behavior, and I'm always looking for the motivation or the reasons behind why people do things. And she was great in that part. She's really good. We all know that, right? I mean, she's really the anchor there. I remember one scene. This isn't a scene in the game; it's a scene in the production stage, and I'm talking to the director, and I believe it was Sato, and he's like, "Oh, well," I'm like, don't I get some more lines here? He's like, "No, well, have you ever seen a Clint Eastwood movie? He doesn't talk very much. His character is defined by what the other characters say and do more than by what he says." And I thought, oh, okay, right. So that stuck with me. So anyway, I got into my character the way I got into it, and I developed James the way I did, right? And I did my best. Monica has a lot of great lines, and she's a fantastic voice and easily able to emote and crack her voice when wow, God. So kudos to Monica, and thanks for making me look good, right? In the performance.
Okay. Now, despite the problems you've had with Konami in the past, would you ever work for them ever again?
Oh, it'd be easy now. All the problems are behind us. If they decided to wanted to work with me, it would be easy because we're all clear now.
Yeah.
So sure, why not?
Okay.
I suspect we'd have a contract.
Yeah.
I suspect they'd want all rights released from day one, which is fine. I mean, as long as we're clear and I accept the terms of the engagement, we're good to go. So yeah, that's why I say it'd be easy now. It was fuzzy before. That's why there were problems.
Live and learn. Have you ever considered making an appearance at a video game convention?
Ah, I did. Did. It was during that period of time before Konami agreed to put the original voices back in, and before I waived my rights in the open letter. So, okay, they announced they're going to do new voices, and they are not responding to any email I send or any other messages that I send. And people are bad-mouthing me in various places. So, thought crossed my mind that there were enough rights in question, like the character of James, that if I were to appear at a convention and dress a room up in a Silent Hill mode and do something vis-a-vis James and perhaps with Dave and Monica as well, that it would be really, really difficult for them to stop it, because it would be weird. The fans would not like that. It would play badly for them. And it legally would focus attention on who owns the rights to the character. Okay, so we have no contract. And the character is close enough to me to be, and I worked on it with the directors to the point where I can legitimately lay claim to a percentage of ownership of the character. Okay, this is a whole nother aspect of the intellectual property arguments. Not just the mocap, but the character itself. And the voice for the US release on PlayStation 2 is Konami's. I admit freely I was paid and I agreed verbally that they had obtained the rights for that, not for subsequent releases on other game platforms and not for releases in other territories. And Monica confirmed later that she had the same understanding. So, but then no one really got into the nuances of the character rights. And then there are other things called moral rights, which I've never fully understood myself. But so I thought, well, here's a way of sticking it in their eye. If they're going to deny the original cast their due and go on to these new voices, is to go to a con and have some fun with fans and dress up. Or I think one idea would have been to dress up, but I look in the mirror and I think, maybe it'd be better to let the fans do cosplay, and we're like the judges. So we have an open venue with this set, and we do filming. We let people film and act out the scenes, and we just bump it all up to YouTube or live cast it. It would have been a festival. And I went to some of the cons. I got the room rates to rent a private room off the main venue. And I would have put an ad in the, I had it all kind of mapped out in my head how I would do it. So yeah, I did think about it, but fortunately, we don't need to go there because the original voices are back in. And now what really should happen is Konami should have one of those rooms at a con and invite us. I doubt they will, but it'd be cool if they did.
Okay, and for our last question, is there anything you'd like to say to your fans, or is there anything you would like to end on?
Sure. I would like to say that I am deeply appreciative and humbled by their support and their kind words for my performance. I've always loved acting, and it's again, a twist of fate maybe that I didn't go into it or into film work, but I didn't. I went into design, and I had this maybe once in a lifetime chance to live out a fantasy and be an actor. And guess what? It worked out great. But it only worked out because fans made it work out. And it means a lot to me. And I would also say it's only because of the fans and their vocal support that the original voices are in the HD collection. Number one, it was fan support that turned me around and made it clear that I needed to release the rights, that this was bigger than a couple of bucks for me or my pride having been injured by Konami, right? So the fans taught me that. I appreciate that. And the fans put pressure on Konami to bring them back around to even accept our offer, because it's pretty clear they wanted to use the new voices. I mean, these guys are pretty tight. They're all friends. Troy and Mary Elizabeth and Devin and Tom. So it's easy for them to work together. And it would have been for them easy to, walk away from the original performances and replace them for a new generation of fans. Well, I think all of us, Monica, Dave, Donna, myself, we owe it a debt of gratitude to the fans for standing up for us and asking for it. I don't know if it would ever happen with another game the way it happened with this one. Something special about the fans, something special about that story. 10 years ago, 9, 8, 7 years ago, and now with social media available to us, it's just a confluence of lucky coincidences that your voices could be heard, and they were. So big thank you to all the loyal, true Silent Hill 2 fans. What can I say for you? This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there eating pizza? Let's party! I'll do Dave's lines now. Don't get all holy with me, James. This town called you too. No, don't get all holy on me, James.
Well, this was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for sticking with us for this long. This ran about twice as long as I planned, but I'm not complaining, but I very much appreciate that you took the time to do this with us.
My pleasure. It's talk to you or go out and move boxes. So it was easy.
I'm flattered.
I've been lollygagging. Now I've got to go out and face the music. All right. Well, Dina and Tony, thank you very much for having me on your program, and I look forward to continuing to interact with fans and to be and to support them and support the series in the future. Oh, let's hope it keeps going another 10 years. Wouldn't that be something?
Until next time, try to enjoy the daylight.
Wasn't it R-rated?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
No, I wouldn't watch an R-rated movie.
Oh, okay.
What, you believe me?